Guyana.
Mr. President, thank you for convening this meeting with the urgency that the situation demands. I also thank Assistant Secretary General Yencha and Mr. Rajasingham of OCHA for the information provided. Mr. President, after months of public expressions from various Israeli officials, we are confronted with the decision of the Israeli Security Cabinet to occupy Gaza City by 7th October 2025. The implementation of this decision will engender the forcible displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians and would further undermine the two-state solution. We call on Israel to reverse this reprehensible decision. In both Gaza and the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, we are witnessing in real time and on a daily basis decisions and actions that violate international law and threaten regional and international peace and security. It is striking, Mr. President, that Israel continues to announce to the world beforehand, including in this Council, decisions that would violate international law if implemented. We have witnessed this with UNRWA and more recently with OCHA. This decision to take full control of Gaza is the latest installment in Israel's contemptible actions against the Palestinian people. It comes on top of numerous infractions committed over the decades since the decision was made for the Israeli state to be established in the land of Palestine in 1947. Indeed, Palestinians have lived through the Nakba and the ensuing years characterized by constant violence and dispossession owing to the Israeli occupation. Guyana reiterates its condemnation of the attacks on Israel on 7th October, perpetrated by Hamas and other armed groups. Yet, Mr. President, nothing, absolutely nothing, justifies the collective punishment that Israel has perpetuated against the people of Gaza over the past 2 years. Mr. President, dear colleagues, there are 3 questions which each member state of the United Nations must ask itself. First, why does the occupying power act in such defiance of the international community, even though it is in contravention of international law, including international humanitarian law and international human rights law? Second, why are the actions of the occupying power not met with strong, unified, and collective positions by this Council? And third, would any member state of this Council allow its citizens to be subject to this type of inhumane treatment by any actor, including a fellow member state of the United Nations? The honest answers to these questions should inspire a sense of urgency in all of us to act now to end Israel's war against Palestinians on every front that this war is being fought. In the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, where Israel continues operations that result in displacement of Palestinians, in injuries and in fatalities, where settler violence has become normalized under the might of the Israeli security forces, where Palestinians continue to lose their property and livelihoods under vexing circumstances, where Israeli officials carry out provocative visits to holy sites, adding another layer to existing tensions, and in Gaza, which is bearing the weight of a humanitarian catastrophe characterized by famine, disease, death, displacement, denial, and yes, impunity. We, the Security Council, must respond to the fact that over 61,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza since October 7, and this number increases every single day. In an unfortunate move, Israel has now announced its intention to intensify its military operations in Gaza. With the scale of destruction that has taken place already in Gaza, there are hardly any buildings left to target. Therefore, let us be clear about the objective of intensifying military operations in the Strip and what it would mean for Palestinians who have, to this point, managed to defy the odds and remain alive, humiliated and persecuted as they are. We must also consider what intensified military operations would mean for United Nations personnel and humanitarians who continue to operate in Gaza. Their operations would be further curtailed, since the already precarious security situation would be exacerbated, and the risks to their personal safety and security would also increase. Let us also consider what intensified military operations could mean for the hostages still being held by Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups. Just this week, we discussed the atrocious situation to which these individuals have been subjected, and we all demanded their immediate and unconditional release. In that context, my delegation had stressed that the persons being held hostage should not be used as bargaining chips to extract concessions. Their continued captivity is a grave violation of international law, which must not continue to be prolonged. We therefore reiterate our call for the release of all individuals held captive by Hamas and other armed groups in Gaza. Mr. President, the Council must act in the face of all that is taking place in Gaza, and now in response to Israel's annexation plans. The International Court of Justice was clear in its pronouncements regarding the illegality of any annexation of Palestinian territory by Israel. We must intensify our efforts to ensure Israel completely evacuates the Palestinian territory and withdraws to the pre-1967 lines in accordance with the relevant UN resolutions and the advisory opinion of the ICJ. Guyana also urges that this Council act collectively to achieve an immediate, unconditional, and permanent ceasefire in Gaza and to end the violence against the civilians in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem. We must also take action to enable conditions for a drastic improvement in the humanitarian situation in Gaza. We have taken note that Israel's military plans involve providing humanitarian aid to civilians outside combat zones. Unfortunately, the operations of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation have already provided us with enough information on what the provision of aid by the GHF looks like: inadequate, dangerous, and limited in reach. The Council must demand facility for the United Nations and its humanitarian partners to have full humanitarian access to all civilians in need in Gaza, so that there can be a flood of assistance into the area in a rapid, safe, and unhindered manner. Actions by other UN member states must also complement Security Council action. In this regard, Guyana is encouraged by the decisions announced by some member states in response to the decision of the Israeli Security Cabinet. Every member state has a responsibility to ensure that it is not contributing in any way to the perpetuation of the war in Gaza, and therefore to the attempts to annihilate the Palestinian people. Mr. President, when appeals to morality, to humanity, and even to legality fail to produce the required action, the Council must delve into its toolbox to save lives. We have long reached this point, and Guyana is prepared to act with fellow Council members to take the relevant decisions. I thank you.
Agradezco a la delegación de Guyana su declaración. Doy la palabra a la delegación de Pakistán.
Thank you, Mr. President. Once again, we meet here in this council as Gaza bleeds under systematic, premeditated, and deliberate violations of international law, including international humanitarian law, this Council's own resolutions and binding orders of the ICJ. And all of this committed with impunity by Israel, the occupying power.